Oh, baby, it is time for a special edition of the RotoWire Rundown. Of course, it is the Tour Championship week. I am down in Hotlanta, fresh off my trip from Denver, out there in the altitude in the drier air. Oh, in the hot temperatures of the southeast. It was Memphis first. It was boiling there, and it's just as hot down here. The RotoWire Rundown, it's a special edition. As you can see, I'm joined by more than just Len Hochberg, senior golf writer over there at RotoWire, award-winning scribe. I also have with me from the RotoWire team, DFS specialists and betting extraordinaires, Ryan Andrade and Ryan Pohle. First, Len, I'll start with you, my usual counterpart in crime. How are you doing this week? And are you fired up for the Tour Championship and the FedEx Cup winner?
It's it's an annual thing. Where else can we get golf people complaining all at one place about one thing, the scoring format? So here we go.
Well, I mean, one place and people complaining all about the same thing, probably the front door of the PGA Tour headquarters, but I digress. All right, Ryan Andrade, how are you doing?
Doing great. Happy to be here as always, and ready to crown a champ.
All right, and Ryan Poole, the last member of today's quadrilateral, we'll say. How are you doing, man?
Yeah, what's up, guys? Good to be with you again. Who's not excited for a tournament where we've got a guy that's even money to win?
Yeah, take the best player and give him the most strokes. I tell you, when it comes down to it, I know football season just started. I guess Florida State could have used a couple strokes themselves, but I won't go there. So I'm here in Atlanta. I had to throw out some props to Georgia Tech. Speaking of which, here in Atlanta, Eastlake Golf Club, the FedEx Cup. This is the 18th edition. Len Hochberg. Let's start with you. Could you give us a little history of basically how we got to this point and what these starting strokes are and what exactly is going on this week and who we're trying to crown as FedEx Cup champion? Break it down for us.
Well, 2007, the PGA Tour implemented a playoff system, 4 events it used to be, ending right here at Eastlake in the Tour Championship. Every sport has playoffs. Every sport crowns a champion. It's a little bit different in golf, as I think we're going to get into as we discuss this here. Being an individual sport, it's not like a World Series or a Super Bowl. But back in 2018, Tiger Woods won the Tour Championship and Justin Rose won the FedEx Cup, and the PGA Tour didn't like that. They didn't like how they wanted their Tour Championship winner to be their FedEx Cup champion. And so they threw all that system out and they implemented this starting strokes format, I think they call it. It just really rolls right off your tongue. I mean, who wouldn't get over, get ready, psyched for that with that exciting title. But since then, so they stagger the scoring. Scottie Scheffler, the best golfer, the most points during the year, starts at 10 under. He's got 2 more points, two more strokes than Xander Schauffele. And they go all the way down to even par. And so the guys who are in 26th through 30th place, 30 golfers here this week, start 10 strokes behind Scottie Scheffler. And good luck beating Scottie Scheffler by 10 shots all season, much less in 4 rounds. So that's where we are. And it's very controversial that they are staggered and they're not starting even. And I don't know of another place in sports where that happens. Even in baseball in extra innings, when they have the runners start on second base, the other team gets to do the same thing. Yeah. So, yeah.
All right. Well, I'll cover a less controversial subject as we talk about Eastlake. Pretty unbelievable scene down here in the transformation that the golf course has gone through. If you haven't heard, folks, Eastlake was renovated by architect Andrew Green. They started just after last August at the end of the last year's Tour Championship, and they spent the entire year reshaping, recontouring, and regrassing the entire property. And I tell you what, it is spectacular, but it was a tight timeline. And we're down here in Atlanta where the growing conditions, even in the winter, can be a little bit tough at times. I think we're going to see a lot of Bermuda grass this week. And what I mean by that is that when you grow Bermuda grass on such a tight timeline down here in the heat, it loves to grow. But in the beginning, it's going to be super, super grainy. So as we're building out our lineups, as we're making our wagers, we want to be very, very aware of who are the best players on Bermuda grass, not just putting, but also chipping and playing from the rough. I mean, this place, it is absolutely fantastic what Andrew Green has done. He has opened up so many different sight lines, not just down the fairways, because a lot of those are generally the same. So I think people that were good at East Lake before are going to be good at East Lake again. But what's really cool about this is that you can see much more across the golf course. And it feels like as this rectangle piece of property, as you look at it on Google Earth, it's much more contiguous and you can see the other players that are around you. And when you're having somewhat of a championship venue like this, where there's 30 guys competing for the season's title, it's like everyone can see each other across the Super Bowl field, from sideline to sideline. And I think that's pretty cool. Now, some of the changes actually changed par or the scorecard. They've added 144 yards, and it's no longer a par 70, but a par 71. The 14th hole has been extended by 16 yards. It's no longer a brutal par 4. It now looks like a very scoreable downhill par 5. And I think that, overall, Green knows exactly what he's doing. If you're not familiar with Andrew Green, he did the redesign or the renovation at Oak Hill where we had the PGA Championship a year ago. So this guy is an up-and-comer in the architecture world, and there's no doubt, he's on a fast track to become the next Gil Hans or someone of that ilk. There's no doubt about it. Now, this golf course was originally designed by Donald Ross, and for Green to bring it back to that classic style, the contouring, the greens, and everything else, and at the same time modernize it so that these guys that hit the ball 320 in the air, even at sea level, are going to be tested, is a pretty fantastic thing. So I'm looking forward to this week to these guys playing an absolutely brand new golf course and how they handle it, and just walking around the property today and tomorrow, seeing the players prepare and what kinds of shots they're looking for. It's all very, very exciting. And speaking of the players, we got to get into some of these storylines. So first, I want to go to you, Ryan Andrade, right? It's Scottie, it's Xander. They've been going head-to-head all season. Now, Scottie's gotten the better of them with 7 wins, a green jacket, and a gold medal. But Xander has those 2 majors. If Xander, where do you see this player of the year race going? If Xander wins this week and he becomes the FedEx champion and he takes Scottie down, who would then have lost the FedEx title 3 straight years in a row, do you think he has a chance still to become player of the year, or how do you see that working out?
Well, I think he has a chance just because, it's the players that are voting on this, right? And a lot of times for the players, I don't think the question is who was the best player this year. I think it's a lot of times for the players, it comes down to which season would I rather have. And, 2 majors and a FedEx Cup, that's tough to pass up. You had a lot of players saying that even if he didn't win the FedEx Cup, that they'd still take the 2 majors no matter what. And for me, I think player of the year should be who was the best at golf that year, and it's still clearly Scottie. Whether you want to go by scoring average, clearly ahead, strokes gained, clearly ahead. Xander's player of the year any other year, like he is just as far ahead as Scottie is of him from, the rest of the field. So it's unfortunate, that it came down to this sort of thing. But, man, I think we would all love to see those 2 go head to head on a Sunday to finish the season off, whether that has any implication for who wins player of the year or not.
All right, now let's skip over to the other Ryan. How about the fact that Hideki wins the St. Jude? Right? And then we have Captain Keegan takes down the BMW. 12 times over the 17 editions of this FedEx Cup playoffs, we've had repeat winners. Do you see maybe one of these guys? Is Hideki going to come back after withdrawing last week? Or is Captain Keegan going to run the gambit and then, I guess race with the American flag right up to Royal Montreal? How do you see this playing out?
Yeah, what a sight that would be. Looking at the odds here, either Scottie or Xander winning is about 75% to happen. So, a repeat winner here would be unlikely. Matsuyama's at 11-1, Keegan's at 35-1. So it's not impossible, but certainly unlikely. I think Matsuyama's the big question mark. this week because he looked great at TPC Southwinds, and then he shoots a 6 under 66 in the first round last week. You're thinking he might go back to back, and then that's the last we see of him. He's had the back issues flare up a bunch. I think if he's able to put that behind him and be 100%, I certainly think he can win. Only starting 3 shots back. It's not like, all 30 guys can really win this week. There's probably, about 15, half the field or so that actually has a chance. Keegan would be a shock. Yeah, clearly he found something last week, but 4 shots back, hey, he's got a much better chance than Justin Thomas does at 10. So,
well, there's no doubt about that. Although JT, he's been pretty strong down here in the 7 times that he's played at East Lake. But Len, you alluded to this earlier. Everyone seems to complain about the format of this event. So I'm going to go around the horn here. So everyone's going to get put, on the hot seat for a second. But Len, I'm going to start with you. If you were going to do something different with the Tour Championship, what would you do? Or would you leave it the same? Do you think that this is the best case scenario for what it is we have to try to crown?
I think they had the best case scenario and they went away from that, and they had that 4-event playoff. The number of events doesn't really matter, but back in 2018, as I alluded to, they didn't like the fact that the winner of the Tour Championship was not the winner of the FedEx Cup. It sort of muted the winner. In every sport, there's one champion. And so I understood that. I understand that. But to start with not everyone on a level playing field, why don't we give Michael Phelps half a pool, to date myself or something? It just seems so ridiculous. I don't know if there's anything in sports that even comes close to this. Maybe I'm missing some far off sport from some far place. So I don't know if there's the best thing. I think there's never everyone going to be happy. And with an individual sport, it's different from a team sport going through the playoffs, because always it is going to have 30 guys in the final event. Okay, that's a good number. And any of those guys could win. So be it. We have upsets all the time in sports. But to rig it or stagger it for the better guys, it just seems sort of hokey. And I'm kind of surprised it's lasted this long, because the outcry was so great when it started. But they're insistent upon it. And Scottie Scheffler says it's silly. We all know it's silly. So I'd go back to just playing the tournaments and let it fall where it ends. It doesn't always end up where we think it's going to end in sports. That's why we watch.
Ryan Poole, what do you think?
Yeah, we were kind of talking about this before we went on air, and if the Chiefs go 17-0, they don't start up 7-0 to start every playoff game. So it's one of those situations where not everybody's going to be happy no matter what they do. Clearly the last format wasn't the preferred way to go. People don't like the current format. I would rather just have it be a 72-hole stroke play event with no starting strokes. If you look at some of the past winners of this, of just lowest gross, Rory's won it twice. Last year, we would have had a playoff between Victor Hovland and Xander Schauffele. Yeah. The tour, I know they don't want a lesser name winning this event, but let's be honest, Christian Bezuidenhout is not winning this event, whether they have starting strokes or not. The other option is, there's no match play event anymore. It would be pretty cool to see the season come down to a match play. I think that's something that a lot of fans would like. Logistically, sponsorship wise, I don't know how realistic that is. You could go 32 guys and start it on Wednesday, but what happens if Scheffler gets knocked out right away? So I don't know if there's a perfect answer for it, but that's kind of the route I would go. One of those two.
Well, I tell you what, I like that you're already picking on the international team, for the President's Cup, or, possible guys that could be on that team. And B, it's obvious that there's options. And the current one doesn't seem to make a lot of sense from a sports point of view. And I'm with you when it comes to upsets. I think that's a lot of what people like to see in sports are upsets from time to time. And yeah, Seabez isn't walking through that door anytime soon. But if somebody from the middle of the pack came up and challenged these guys, it would be a pretty cool thing. What do you think, Ryan?
Yeah, I think, we have to realize that, TV runs everything these days. And that was the reason they made this change, because they were sick of having Steve Sands sit up there and cut in every 10 minutes to tell us, who was where on the points and what it meant for the FedEx Cup. And so that's why they decided to do it. So you could just tune in and be like, oh, he's here, 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 as it relates to the FedEx Cup. And, I think, it's going to stay that way because of TV. But I think from like a competitive standpoint and like is it fair standpoint, you look at it like Scottie Scheffler has been clearly the best player all season. If he has to withdraw, like he goes from, first clearly ahead of everybody the entire season to 30th. And his bonus money goes from 25 million to 500,000, so I think that is where some of the players would push back on this a little bit because, I guess the way it was before, you had it was like an actual, season long race. That's what they try to sell this as, is a season long race. And really it's, did you win Eastlake or not? And, I think if we're going to keep it at the starting strokes format, they almost should double down and be like, if you win, you get an extra stroke at the Tour Championship. If you win a major, you get 2 extra strokes. Something like that to actually create a gap to where, the guys that are actually supposed to be competing for this are going to be. And so, but it's like you guys said, it's a tough way to go. But I think in the end, TV is going to run these decisions because they want to just create these Game 7 moments whenever they can and get people to tune in, So, we'll see how it plays out this week.
There's 2 interesting points there. First of all, according to your math, Scottie would be up 9 strokes on everybody. So maybe the tour is almost right. And then I love what you're talking about with when it comes to Game 7 matchups. And this is where I'm going to go with this argument. If this truly is a playoffs, the most compelling stories of the last 2 weeks haven't been the winners per se. It has been the guys fluctuating on that cut line. That to get in the top 50, and then Keegan got in, and all of a sudden he won the next week, and then to get into the top 30. Those guys that get in the top 30 here, yes, they all can't win because of the staggered strokes, but they get in all 4 majors next year. I mean, that's a pretty big deal for some of these guys who, it's an annual goal to get in the Tour Championship because that's one of the perks. And we do miss match play, but I don't believe that you can have a stroke play season and then all of a sudden switch to a match play format. I mean, the PGA professional in me kind of goes, I don't think that really is okay, right? But I think there's a way around that. I think you let in 32 players. On Thursday, you let them all play matches. So the 32nd guy goes against the first guy, which would be Scheffler, and that should be an advantage. And that's all he should need. But instead of playing match play format, they would play stroke play, and then whoever has the lowest score at the end of that round would advance. 16 on Friday, 8 on Saturday, and then 4 left. They'd have to play 36 holes on Sunday, but you'd get as much TV as you want. If you force these guys to play stroke play head to head, the cream is going to rise to the top, right? You're going to get a great weekend of golf, and you're going to get a winner. And I think in sports, what we love most about the playoffs is single elimination. No one gets that hyped up for a Game 1 of an NBA series or an NHL series, but you get to Game 7 and it is appointment viewing. And, what's better than a bracket, for the NCAA tournament or the NFL playoffs where you're one and done. It doesn't matter if you're undefeated. So I think I would try to do something like that if we're really concerned about having just that one winner. Now, speaking of that one winner, it's time to shift gears over to building out some lineups, right? The winner's probably going to come from this price range, Len Hochberg. But before I get to the 10K land and your usual expertise picking the names, are there any changes this week to DFS scoring because of the staggered start? or is everything the same? It's just that people are in different places on the leaderboard.
Yeah, well, it's important you bring that up, Keith. The DraftKings, and I think a lot of places, they will use the PGA Tour leaderboard. Wherever you start, you start. Now, you're not getting bonus points. You're not getting 10 birdies because because Scottie Scheffler is starting at 10 under, but you will get birdies from there. And and in the betting market, I think you can, there are some that use the staggered strokes and some don't use the staggered strokes. But more specifically to DFS and to DraftKings, they will follow the PGA Tour leaderboard, and that's really important when it comes to the bonus points of who wins. So someone who has the low 72-hole score but doesn't win with the staggered strokes will not get the 30 bonus points that DraftKings distributes. So we have to consider that, and those starting strokes are valuable. We've seen them disappear quite quickly, but we do have to factor that into our I have to factor it. I will factor that into my lineup construction.
All right. So speaking of that lineup construction, in the 10K land, it seems like there's two choices. Who are you going to pick?
Well, I think I think there's a clear choice here. With apologies to Bobby Jones, I think Mr. Eastlake is really Xander Schauffele. He's won this tournament once, really won it. He's been low 72 a couple of other times. He's really had more success here. Well, he and Rory McIlroy are the two guys head and shoulders above everybody in this field at Eastlake. And as you alluded to before, while Eastlake is different in a lot of ways, I don't know how different it could be. You can't just recreate an entire course to change the skill set around, or maybe you can, but you don't seem to think that happened, and you are there. So, and from what I've seen, I agree with you. So think you have to favor Xander. He's also the better putter, although, when we look at Scottie Scheffler the last couple of years and has not played well here, I mean, he was putting horribly last year. He's about 80th on tour, 80, 90th on tour in putting this year, far better than previous years. He's putting far better. And I don't really factor in what happened last week. A lot of guys were just way off with their yardage, even on Sunday. It just was, a bit of an anomaly. I'm not going to count what happened too much last week, this week. So if you're going to go with one guy, and you also get what's the number? You get about a $1,100 savings, $1,200 savings on Xander Schauffele.
So again, looking at the golf course, because they didn't move holes, I would say a good 75 to 80% are the same sight lines off the tee that Xander loves, right? And the big factor for me is this Bermuda grass. Scottie doesn't putt good on Bermuda grass. And Xander scrambling in and around the greens, I think is going to be a huge asset this week because the place isn't completely grown in. And you're going to get some pretty sketchy lies. And he's just a better scrambler overall with the putter than Scottie is. So I think you're leaning in the right direction. Ryan Andrade, we're going to give you, Led only had a couple guys to choose from, basically. But now I'm going to give you 8 to look at between the 8K and the 9K range. Who would you be featuring in your lineups?
There's honestly only like a couple guys that really stood out to me in like both of those ranges, and one of them was Ludwig Aberg. I think some of the changes I think will help, a guy that has, inexperience, just because, some of the sidelines might be the same, but, the bunkering, the greens look a lot different to me. I think that could help him a little bit, going against like some of the guys that, played this for 8 years in a row or whatever. And, he hits it long and straight, that plays anywhere. And he's gained on approach in, 12 straight events. So, I think, he's starting at 5 under. I think he could easily, keep moving up the board each round. And then down to the 8Ks, Sam Burns has been playing really good recently. He had a good stretch earlier in the year, and then, the middle of the year, he kind of just really fell off. But, he's starting to get it back together. He's coming off, T2 last week, T5. and a T12 right before that. So he putts it great. I think that's going to be important this week, and especially, he loves Bermuda as well. So,
Yeah.
I think putting is going to be big, especially these greens are much bigger. And, I think we'll see a lot of 3 putts, just unfamiliarities with the greens and stuff. But, he's also a great driver. And, I think of some of the guys at 4 under, I think he could really make a run.
I love the Burns play there, and that midseason slump, that's commonly referred to as fatherhood. So he's got the baby under wraps, and it looks like he's back to playing in early season form when he had those 4 straight top 10s. All right, now Ryan Poole, you get the pick of the litter. You get what? 19 guys are left in this pool. Pardon the pun, but intended. Of guys in the 6 and the 7K range. So this is where the rubber meets the road. Every week in the rundown, everybody's looking to hear who Len picks. So the pressure's on. No starting strokes for you. You've got to come up with a couple of winners here. Not maybe the winners of the FedEx Cup, but winners from a DFS strategy standpoint in the 6 and 7K range. Who are you taking?
So I've got 2 guys in the 6K range that I'm targeting. One we mentioned earlier in Justin Thomas. He's at 6,800.
Okay.
Like you mentioned, Keith, he's played really well at East Lake over the years. If you look at since 2019 of guys with at least 2 appearances here, he's got the 4th lowest scoring average in the field at 67.6. Now, he squeaked into the Tour Championship here. Worked out well for Keegan Bradley last week. JT hasn't putted the ball well the first 2 playoff events, but he's struck the ball pretty well. So
yeah,
I think at 10 strokes back, it's too much for Thomas to win this tournament. But I think he could definitely work his way into the top 10, maybe even the top 5 come Sunday. And then one more guy in the 6K range, since I was giving a little shade towards the international squad earlier, apparently. Taylor Pendrith at 6,500. He's had a good finish to the season. He's had a couple of top 5s recently. T13 last week, so the game's in pretty good form. He's not currently in that top 6. He's battling for a captain's pick, so he kind of needs a good week. He's a little sporadic off the tee, but outside of that, the rest of the game is in good form. And I think Pendrith is a good way to, fit those Xander, Scottie guys into your lineup.
Anybody in the 7K catch your eye?
Yeah, I don't love the 7K range, but I would lean towards Ben On or Tony Finau there.
Ooh, I love the Finau pick there in the 7K land. And I wish I was spraying it like Pendrith. Guy flies it like 325. I think he hit one like 400 yards last week off of those mountains. It's unbelievable. A great point about the Canadians all wanting to make Mike Weir's team. And Pendrith making it all the way to East Lake was a huge vote of confidence, I'm sure. And I'm sure he wants to maybe solidify one of those 6 captains picks. And maybe we'll get into captains picks a little bit later. But let's shift gears for a second over to the betting side. My pride and joy over here. Usually this is where I, lay out a couple of picks. But you know what? I want to hear what you guys think. FedEx Cup champion. Who's it going to be? Who are you guys picking? And I'll go back to you, Ryan Poole. We'll let you lead off.
Yeah, so my pick to win is super boring. I'm going with the favorite, Scottie Scheffler. I know you guys like Xander, for obvious reasons, but I just think that Scottie is. Hey, listen, there's a lot of reason to be motivated this week, but he's hearing everybody talk about how Xander's Player of the Year. And I think he's going to put that to rest this week. It's not that he hasn't played well at East Lake in the past. He looked like he had it wrapped up 2 years ago, and Rory caught him, and Scottie felt the pressure. I think he can use that to his advantage this time around if he gets into that situation. And I think the winner comes from Scottie or Xander. unless Matsuyama's 100%. I think it's between one of them three.
Okay. Ryan Andrade, how about you? Who wins the FedEx Cup?
Yeah, I'm taking Hideki. I want to
Ooh.
dive right into Hideki.
I love it.
I think, I think last week was one of those things where, he's looking at it, right? And like, he's probably not really going to move anywhere if he finishes the tournament out, apart from winning, which, he might have gone back to back. Hideki, when Hideki gets on a heater, he just goes, man. And, he was second, I think, and then he had to withdraw, caught everybody off guard. But, if there's anybody that knows, his body and all the getting it right, getting it not right, it's Hideki. So I'm not going to even like think about it. I'm just going to go Hideki because he's putting like as well as he's ever has in his career. He's hitting it great. He's, top 3 in strokes gained around the green, I think. And, I think you can get him at plus 1,100. So there's a pretty significant gap down to him at 7 under. And with as good as he's putting it right now, man, that's pretty hard to pass up.
A healthy Hideki is super dangerous in this field. I mean, it's a big question mark, but if he is healthy, boy, I like that pick. Len Hochberg, where are you going with this?
Yeah, I think it's hard to just not say Xander Schauffele because not only has he played as well as anyone at this course over the years, but he's even in better position this year than he has been in a few other years. And he's only 2 shots behind Scottie Scheffler. So I would have to take him based on all of that. I'm not discounting Rory McIlroy. Rory McIlroy has come from 5 shots back 1 year, 6 shots back another year. He's the only one to come back with any like that. Victor Hovland came back last year, but he was starting at the 8 under position last year. That's really not anything difficult to come back from 2 shots. So Rory McIlroy is starting 6 shots back. And, I'm not picking Victor Hovland to win, but he is 8 shots back and only 8,300. And, he could be in the top 5 after Thursday. But if you're saying one guy who's going to win, it has to be Xander based on the positioning.
Well, I'm going to go with my counterpart in crime. I think that if I have to pick a FedEx Cup champion with the staggered strokes, it's tough to get away from Xander. 7 trips here. 3 times he's been the gross low player for the week. He's never finished worse than 7th. I know the golf course has changed, but with all due respect to Mr. Jones, this is Schauffele's place. There's no doubt about that. I will say, however, though, the Shadow Tournament is going to be pretty exciting because there's a number of guys that I think can give a run towards Scottie or Xander that you're going to get much better odds on. And one of them came up earlier, and that's Sam Burns. So I just want to mention that, like, for the folks that are listening out here, don't forget that almost every operator is going to give you an opportunity to choose a winner of the 72-hole gross tournament, meaning no staggered strokes. You're going to have to keep score on your own because the PGA Tour just ignores that exists. But you can get much longer odds, and Sam Burns is plus 2,500 at a place where he finished 4th last year. He was 12th at the 3M, 5th at the St. Jude. He was runner-up last week, and he's going on a Bermuda grass that's brand new. I mean, oh man, 25 to 1. I'm going to roll some dice on that, and I want to make sure we mention the Shadow Tournament for other people to, if they're looking for some longer odds or for a tournament where they don't get starting strokes, then certainly one exists. How about a quick placement for everybody? I got 2 more questions for everybody. So let's be quick about this. I need a placement from you guys. Len, I'll go to you first.
Just a wonderful thing that we're calling the lowest score the Shadow Tournament. But I digress. Looking at a couple of guys for top 5s, Tommy Fleetwood starts at 1 under. Russell Henley starts at 2 under. Last time I checked the DraftKings, they're both plus 550 for a top 5. I mean, Henley at 2 under, he's only starting 3 strokes out of a top 5 right off the bat. So, and Fleetwood, it's very quick, even for the guys all the way down at the bottom. It's very fast to get into the top 10, very fast to get into a top 5. So Fleetwood and Henley plus 550 for a top 5, and Taylor Pendrith plus 450 for a top 10.
Ryan Andrade, placement bet for us.
Yeah, I really like that Penrith one. I actually had that. Well, it was one of the ones I wrote down here, but this one I think is just free money. Adam Scott for a top 10 with the starting strokes plus 160. He's starting T11 right off the
Free
bat, so
money.
he's right there. It's free money, man. Like it's he's
love it.
finished top 10 three of his last 4 starts. He's rolling it great on the greens, gained with the putter in 5 straight, gained around the greens in 7 straight, gained off the tee in 10 of 11.
Yeah.
I mean, give me some of that.
Yeah, you know what you could give me? Some strokes gained on Sunday with the putter. I had him at the beginning of the week at plus 5,500 at the BMW. Second worst ever Sunday finish by a putt. Oh, don't even get me started. Ryan Poole, give me a placement bet, please.
Yeah, my betting article, I was going for 3 wins in a row with Adam Scott, so I'm right there with you, Keith. I've got Tony Finau at 5-1 for a top 5. He's had a really good year. It's just if you don't win, you don't get the attention. But Finau's been playing about as well as he ever has this year.
Yeah, Finau, he has been one of definitely a top 5 ball striker all year. Arguably even like up there is like third behind Xander and Scottie. He has been a lot better than people are giving him credit for. For me, the placement bet, my favorite one on the board is JT at plus 360 for a top 10. As Len said, he's only 3 shots out of tied for 11th, right? 4 shots out of a top 10. Over 4 days at a golf course, he's played 7 times and never finished worse than 9th. I really think short game and Bermuda putting is going to play a huge role this week. He's been driving the ball better. I know the putter's been shaky, but I think it's going to be shaky for a lot of guys this week. And that's going to bring, some of the pack that are better putters back to the guys that are a little bit more mediocre. So I think JT at plus 360 for a top 10. Now, before we go, we'll have to talk to the powers that be at RotoWire. We'll have Len write an email or do something to get us back together for the President's Cup and do a rundown for that Tuesday of Royal Montreal. But until then, this Monday, Jim Furyk's got to make some captain's picks for the American side. I know they got to do it on the international side, but nobody wants to listen to that, right? They want to find out whether or not you guys are picking Max Homa or who are you picking, right? So give me one captain's pick. We know who the 6 are that are in, all right? Give me one captain's pick for Jim Furyk's team for the President's Cup in a month, and I'm going to go to Ryan Andrade first.
Ooh. I think there's a few obvious ones, but like one that I would really like to see would be one of these 2 guys, either Akshay Bhatia or Nick Dunlap. I think both of them are going to be young, superstars here soon. They've both proven they can win already. They've both won multiple times early in their career. I think it's one of those situations where use the President's Cup as a warm up for the Ryder Cup, let these guys get their feet wet. And, I think in Akshay Bhatia or Nick Dunlap has a lot more years on these type of teams than, throwing in a Keegan Bradley or a Brian Harmon or somebody like that. I'd rather give some of the young guys a shot at a President's Cup.
Ryan Poole, who are you picking?
So I'm going to be furious if Russell Henley does not make this team. I know he's not the young, sexy pick, but he has had such a good year. And I see a lot of people on Twitter putting out their teams and they don't include him. I mean, no, Henley didn't win this year, but he did just about everything else. 5th at the Open, T7 at the U.S. Open, 4 top 5s. Like, he should be in. Get Max Homa out. Everybody loves Homa. I love Homa as much as the next guy. He's playing like crap. Get Henley in there. I'd be fine with Bhatia if he can show something this week, but Bhatia hasn't really done that much over the last couple of months either.
All right, well, to quote Herb Brooks, I'm not looking for the best players. I'm looking for the right ones. And I think Russell Henley gives you a chance to win a lot of foursome matches, the way that guy strikes the golf ball. For me, I'm going to go quickly before we get to Len. It's got to be all about Captain Keegan Bradley. I mean, when the PGA of America, I know I'm a PGA member, so, this is not me up on a pedestal or anything, but I mean, the only people that had to be happier than Keegan himself getting in the top 50 has to be, the PGA of America, because now he gets to go to every signature event next year, right? He gets to, scout out all these Ryder Cup picks that he could possibly make. Not only that, then the guy goes and wins, and now he's going to work his way onto the President's Cup team. Let's keep the mojo going. Let's get Captain Keegan as a player up there in Royal Montreal. Len, who are you taking?
I think Henley is going to be on. I think Bradley's going to be on. Batia, maybe deservedly, but don't know if he's going to get it. I think the lightning rod, deja vu all over again. Justin Thomas is going to be right in the mix again. He's like 19th. Oh, yeah. He's in 19th in the standings. He's far back, but he's Justin Thomas. And we've seen he was pretty darn good in the Ryder Cup again, paired with Jordan Spieth, who was a zero contribution really. And I think he belongs on the team based on everything he does in these competitions, but doesn't belong on the team based on what he's done with the points and leading all up to it. So Jim Furyk has a really, really hard choice there. But the international team is getting better. It's better. It's always better than it's ever been. I think he needs Justin Thomas on the team.
Who's JT going to play with?
They'll find somebody.
That's a big question.
He'll be happy.
Him and Max Homa.
Yeah, you might as well give him Spieth if you're going to give him Homa. Forget it. All right, guys. Fantastic job breaking down the Tour Championship. As I said earlier, hopefully we get Len to talk to the powers that be, and we can come back one more time for the President's Cup that Tuesday morning. But next week, it's Labor Day. Len, we have a week off, right? The PGA Tour, they're not playing next week, but in 2 weeks, you and I will be back at our usual time, 11:15 Eastern time, 8:15 Pacific time, your time. The RotoWire Rundown for the Pro-Core Championship. Get yourself ready to head out to Napa. And I know at 8:15 in the morning, you're not going to have any wine, but at least you'll be on the same time as the tournament. I will see you in 2 weeks. Ryans, hopefully I'll see you both in a month. Thanks for joining us this week to break down the Tour Championship on the RotoWire Rundown.